You tried several times to talk to the interim superintendent, but without any results.
When I asked the school district for a sit-down interview with Dr. Joris Ray last night about these findings, a spokesperson with media relations told me he would talk about them today during the work session. But that didn't happen. He slipped away before I or any other Memphis reporter could talk to him about anything. Before the meeting adjourned, our cameras were rolling when interim superintendent Dr. Joris Ray left the school board's work session. I rushed out into the hallway to ask Dr. Ray about the results of an external investigation which cleared him of a sexual harassment claim. Where is the superintendent?
He's already left.
So I asked the district's chief communication officer, Natalia Powers, why Dr. Ray left the meeting without addressing the media. Even though it was promised yesterday that the superintendent would speak to those matters today during the work session?
Yeah, it's up to him to decide, but at this time we don't have any further comment other than to share what's already been shared through our statement and his personal statements.
In that statement, Dr. Ray said he was disappointed in these claims, and he was supportive of releasing the investigation's findings to, quote, clear up this misinformation. His statement also said in part, quote, this is distracting from the mission of serving and educating children. Our parents, our district, and most importantly, our students deserve our complete support. For 22 years, I have dedicated my life ensuring our community is the best that it can be. And going forward, that will not change. Doesn't the public deserve to hear from the superintendent about these accusations personally?
Yeah, that's what the personal statement does, and that's what our district statement does, and that's why the document was even released and the full investigation was released, because we're trying to be as transparent as possible with the public.
And coming up next at 10 o'clock, hear from the only school board member who would talk with us about the findings of this external investigation. Live in Midtown, Kirstin Garriss, Fox 13 News.
Kirstin, you found out Refurbans still owed taxes even as they were awarded the grant.
That's right, Merle, and the state did not release any funds to Refurban Memphis LLC because they did not turn in necessary paperwork in time. They missed several deadlines outlined in this contract. Now, business experts say this was a close call, but now they say something has to change so this doesn't happen again. I got my hands on this state grant from the Department of Environment and Conservation to Refurban Memphis LLC for truck scales. It was worth nearly $16,000 from the state, with Refurban coming up with an additional nearly $16,000. When I asked the state if they knew about Refurban's tax troubles before awarding them this grant, a department spokesperson said the application process doesn't require a company to submit its local tax payment history.
Tax dollars that we worked really hard for, we're giving to this company, and they're not even meeting their basic criteria of paying their taxes on time, and that's really problematic from our perspective.
The Beacon Center of Tennessee is advocating for more transparency over government spending because of situations just like this one.
If you're getting any money from the government, you should at least be up to date on your taxes. I think it's a very fair thing, and if you are not, you should be disqualified from even applying for one of those grants.
I talked with Commissioner Mick Wright over the phone about this. He says commissioners learned a big lesson from this experience.
It makes me realize that we need to slow down and go through our regular vetting process for everything we do.
Devin James is the founder of Refurban Memphis LLC. I talked with his attorney on the phone, who said James was addressing his tax troubles. But when I checked city and county tax records, it shows Refurban still owes more than $42,000 in back taxes from 2017 and 18. I called James using the number on Refurban's website, but instead of James, the number belongs to a woman who lives in St. Louis. So I stopped by his office on Florida Street for a second time, and again, no one answered. I even went around to the storage entrance. Excuse me, anybody here? And still, no answer. And on Monday, Commissioner Wright says the county will take a vote to approve some county dollars to help the city remove some of those tires right there behind me. A city spokesperson says they are waiting to get permission from the property owner, a group called SSS, not Refurban Memphis LLC, to get access to the land so they can start that removal process. Live in South Memphis, Kirstin Garriss, Fox 13 News. This former jailer spent 2 years working inside the juvenile detention center, and he says the conditions are poor. The building is in poor condition, and they are lacking a lot of resources, and that combination is having an effect on its employees.
You had doors that were being kicked in by detainees to where they can escape their room.
detainee. They took over the facility.
Antarius Pugh is a former deputy jailer at the Shelby County Juvenile Detention Center. I FaceTime with Pugh about his time working inside the facility after 5 corrections officers were relieved of their duties with pay last week. Pugh doesn't know what happened, but he says the building structure is crumbling and there's a lack of vital resources, which is affecting the safety of his corrections officers.
Because this is something that's been boiling over since before I got there. And it's just been constantly boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling and boiling. So this pot is about to get ready to explode. So something bound to happen sooner or later.
During the incident, there were 92 youth detainees at the center. We asked the sheriff's office how many officers are on staff, but they haven't given us that information. Pugh says the center has struggled with staffing for years. He says ideally there should be 1 officer to every 8 detainees, but he says realistically it was always much higher.
But when you got 1 officer and 12 to 15 detainees, there's just no way. There's no way possible that you can control that. 12 to 15 detainees and not having the manpower that you need to do your ratio of 1 to 8. I have not yet really seen that.
And now with 5 less officers on shift, Pugh says things may get worse.
The officers are getting tired. They're getting burnt out. They honestly getting burnt out over there. And it's even more of a high risk because now you're short 5 good officers. You're short 5 good officers, and you need the numbers of other officers inside that facility.
I also reached out to the local union, which represents correctional officers here in the county, but we haven't heard back from them yet. Live in downtown Memphis, Kirstin Garriss, Fox 13 News. Most of these guns were found because of tips, which is a good thing, but many of these guns were also loaded, and some of them were even hidden inside the backpacks of some students.
We have magazine ports here. We have the ability to function the slide, safety on them.
Only one of these guns is real, but at first glance, it's hard to tell which one because they all have similar functions.
We even have the ability to eject the magazine out of this particular gun.
I talked with retired Shelby County Sheriff's Captain Benny Cobb about these guns because they are similar to the ones recovered at 18 Shelby County schools last year. Fox 13 obtained these reports from SCS about gun recovery incidents. Last school year, all 18 guns were found at high schools. Most of them were recovered outside of the classroom or in the parking lot. But this year, 8 guns were recovered at every level, including elementary schools. Most of these guns were found inside the classroom. One was even seized from a student's locker.
It's not a taboo subject anymore. It used to be a taboo subject. We have to talk to them about guns like we do sex education, like we do driver's education. However, guns can be fatal, and that's a conversation that should be had in every household that has a gun.
During one incident, a student brought their grandparents' loaded gun to school, and officers found it after the grandparents showed up to school because it was missing.
There's a breakdown in the home to where these guns are allowed to be taken from the home in the first place.
And Cobb says if you have a gun at home, it needs to be in some kind of lock. And another tip from the Shelby County Sheriff's Office, it's okay to be a nosy parent. They say make sure you check your child's backpack inside and out to make sure they aren't taking anything they shouldn't be to school. Live in Midtown, Kirstin Garriss, Fox 13 News.